Welcome back. So terror oddly puts everything in its place. It aligns priorities and tells you what matters. Everything on the front page gets evicted by images of murder. And that's what it is, not tragedy, it's murder. Which is why it bugs me to see media types ascribe blame to people they already hate. To me, the ability to resist the urge for political rhetoric in brutal times shows intelligence and grace, and it's lesser minds who seek to answer why first instead of who. It's who, once caught, that tells you why. I could name the usual blithering suspects, but there are so many, they multiply like rabbits on Cialis. You got Michael Moore, Nick Kristof, Chris Matthews, and others tossing blame at everyone. But my gut says when you go political early, it's more for ego, a desire to score points against people you dislike. Joy Reid at MSNBC even used the attack to hit on George Bush. And then there's Salon's David Serrata, who writes, quote, "Let's hope the Boston Marathon bomber is a white American." You mean like the Occupy Wall Streeters on trial in Cincinnati? Or Bill Ayers, the nutty professor? I don't think David meant that at all, even though the only difference between Ayers and Boston was that Ayers' bombs went off earlier. Look, by now you've experienced nonstop coverage of this horrible crime, and we know that certain images will stay with us forever. This one especially. Right now, wagging fingers at people you dislike will not change that or bring relief to the suffering families. After this, by the way, Nick Kristof admitted it was stupid for tweeting blame on the Republicans. So that's nice, I guess, Andrea. But where does this come from?
That wasn't his knee-jerk reaction. He only did that because people were ticked off about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And they called him on it.
Yeah.
But his knee-jerk reaction, and not just him, it's a bunch of journalists and people on the left that all of a sudden want to assign blame immediately on the right. And then there's no repercussions for it. I mean, if you look back, they blamed Sarah Palin on the Tucson murders, and they did this for weeks. The Colorado movie theater shooting was blamed on the Tea Party member. We covered that here. It was Brian Ross to George Stephanopoulos. Right. And then this journalistic malpractice happens, and then what? There's no repercussions for them. And look, tradition has it, you pointed out, it's always radicals, radical leftists, radical Islamists, radical vegans, Bob. There's even a radical vegan.
How about the radical?
The only non-Muslim is a guy named Andrea Tantaros on the FBI's most wanted list, and he's a vegan and he blows stuff.
How about the radical right-wing congressman from Iowa, Stephen King, who said this is what he said. Worse than radical. He said that the reason that we should not have immigration bill is because of Boston. Now, leaving the assumption that immigrants came in here and did this sort of thing.
We got to go to the press conference. President Obama is about to speak concerning the Senate vote. I think we have him right here. Here we go.
A few months ago, in response to too many tragedies, including the shootings of a United States Congresswoman, Gabby Gifford, who's here today, and the murder of 20 innocent school children and their teachers.
All right.
This country took up the cause of protecting more of our people from gun violence.
Thanks, guys.
They can get the rest on foxnews.com, where the rest of the statement is going to be streaming.
Unspeakable grief.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so can I jump in on Bob?
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to finish my statement.
So, guys,
Just don't jump on him.
I said it was.
Who happens to be a very nice guy.
He may be a nice guy. That's fine. I like the guy too, but that doesn't mean that he's idiotic to make that statement.
So go ahead.
But can I talk about guns here? Or we have to stick with your topic here.
You do whatever you want, Bob.
Okay, no guns, right? Of course not. Let's let the NRA run this too.
Wait a second. We would talk about guns if we were pro-NRA. Wouldn't we talk about it, Bob? But no, because we're sticking to this topic, which is a bigger topic.
I think that there were probably a lot of blame to go around on both left and right who had initial responses to this. And frankly, a lot of us have jumped to the conclusion, myself included, that it was Islamists who did this. It may well turn out to be that way.
Who on the right said it was a Democrat who did it, or a radical left-winger?
I have no idea.
Cue the crickets.
There were a whole slew, and frankly, I was surprised. It was day one. I mean, literally hours after the Boston Marathon bomb going off, that some people on the left are starting to point fingers and make ridiculous statements. Steny Hoyer blaming sequestration was probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. Chris Matthews, can I just point something out, Greg? I disagree with you on Serrata. I think he used that headline for a reason, to gain a little attention. And also Cynthia McKinney, who says maybe it was an inside joke.
Okay, so let me tell you something really important. If they had some information that this was someone who was right-wing or white supremacist or some kind of radical group on the right, we would have heard this in a leak by the liberal media already.
Yeah, well,
Because they can't
Or a
wait to put that
Christian.
stuff out
Oh,
there,
they
like
hope
Jared
it's a Christian.
Loeffner.
come up with
Tea
5
Party,
examples so far, and that, of course,
Republican.
represents the whole
We actually
left.
probably could have done
good.
25.
Yeah,
It shows
there's a
it
lot
only
more.
hours
I mean,
long.
come
How about
on.
one? You give me one. I'll do this again. Give me one example of a right-winger blaming the Boston bombing.
Well, if
on
you could
something.
argue, I go back to King and Laura Ingraham, who said the thing about blaming the immigration bill is the same thing as saying blaming Obama and those people who support immigration
That's
bills.
completely different, Bob.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I mean, but I probably, if I went through the internet
You have
more,
members
I could
of the
probably find plenty
media.
of them.
You have members of the media blaming conservatives for
the
this tax
impression we're
day,
leaving here is that the
Patriots
whole
Day,
left
wink,
was like
wink,
this, and then you
wink.
picked
What does
out a
that
few-
mean?
You have lawmakers. You have
you have
left-wing media. You have
lawmakers.
prior
You have
lawmakers.
lawmakers.
You have
Can I point out one thing,
So
though?
you got a handful.
We got to wrap. They're telling me we have to wrap now. What I want to point out, though, is that terrorism has gone on the decline, mainly because the Soviet Union no longer sponsors terrorists or radical groups, and now they have the fortunate ability to become professors in American universities.